Good evening. Hello, 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 and welcome to another edition of the Beauty and Us Radio right here on Awesome God Radio. I am your host, Nelson E. Brown, and thanks again for tuning in to all of those who are listening, all of the people who are listening. I'm glad you had some time to allocate towards being here. And I'm glad that it's the month of May. This is my favorite month of the year. It's springtime. We're starting off the month with some warm weather. It was kind of a rough day for me yesterday, but I feel much better today. If you all may know, some of you, a lot of you do, but some of you who do not know, yesterday was my dad's birthday. So it's a happy heavenly 54th birthday to him. It was pretty rough for the second year in a row, not to have him here, of course, but I knew it was going to be a rough day yesterday, so I had to prepare myself. But I'm in a much better frame of mind now. I was able to bounce back. I'm glad that I've had the opportunity to meet uh, a lady who is going to be joining us in about 10 to 15 minutes to talk about her work as a journalist, as a voiceover artist, as a blogger, writer, and producer and director, Miss Paula Ferguson, Miss Paula G Ferguson, and Miss Paula Voice. She's going to be with us to talk about her work in all of those fields. So we're going to have a conversation about mass communications and how to pursue a career in journalism. So that pertains to television and in radio. But I wanted to let you all know that this month is my favorite month also because my birthday is next Saturday, May 14th. And I'm very happy about that. I'm going to be attending a grad fest on my birthday on Saturday, May 14th, next week. I will be 23 years old. I am a 1999 baby. I am very happy about turning 23. I've learned so much throughout the past year. And as this pandemic comes to a close, I've definitely had an opportunity to explore and to heal and to really, really dig deep and really focus on self development and self reflection. So I'm glad that you all had a chance to join me in that pursuit. So I'm going to read a little bit about our guest for the evening, Miss Paula G Voice, aka Miss Paula Ferguson. So I'm going to read her bio to you all so that you can become much more familiar about who she is and the work that she does. Miss Paula Ferguson. So she's our guest for the evening. So Paula G Unlimited LLC, that's her business, that's her brand, that's who she is. But I'm going to read a little bit about her. Miss Paula G Ferguson, aka Miss Paula G Voice, is a radio and TV personality, voiceover talent, author, blogger, print model, and a contributing writer for Flourish Digital Magazine. Paula G Voice, Miss Paula G Voice has interviewed men and women who are making a difference in their community, and society. She has an impressive international roster of individuals interviewed that includes the 100 Black Men of London, actor Wendell Pierce, Dr. Dennis Kimbro, Alfred A. Edmond Jr. of Black Enterprise Magazine, singer-songwriter Kipper Jones, Goaple, Miss Robbie Montgomery, Sandy Red from NBC's The Voice, Golden Globe winner Awkwafina, CNN's Christi and former American football running back Willis McGahee, just to name a few. Ms. Paula hosted the Paula G Show on Survival Radio Network from 2014 to the year 20 from the year 2014 to the year 2020. Excuse me. Ms. Paula also currently hosts the award-winning TV talk show My Journey with Paula G on WATC TV 57.2 Atlanta. She is a regular contributor to Flourish Digital Magazine, and she holds a master's degree in education with a concentration in school counseling. She was a certified K-12 professional school counselor and worked in education for almost 20 years on the high school level. And Ms. Paula is an avid fitness participant and believes that we must take care of the temple, our bodies, that God has given us, according to 1 Corinthians chapter 6, from verse 19 to 20. She is a mother, grandmother, and former military spouse of 23 years, and she is a woman on a journey of influencing dreamers to pick up where they left off and live the life of their dreams. And you can also visit her website at www.paulagvoice.com for more information. But that's just to sum up, what we're going to be speaking about this evening. We're going to be having a conversation with Ms. Paula about how to pursue a career in broadcast journalism, but we're also going to talk about what it means to have a voice on television and in radio. As you all know, you all watch TV, you all listen to the radio, and we have so many media outlets nowadays who showcase different forms of beauty, and you have talk show hosts and radio personalities that cover a wide variety of subjects. But each and every host and each and every TV personality has a voice, a distinct voice, a unique voice that separates them from all of the other personalities and all of the other hosts. So when we think about the work that news analysts, reporters, journalists, writers, authors like ourselves, and producers and directors, we have to think about what they do from a holistic approach, and we have to think about what their overall objective is for why they do what they do, and how important it is for them to use their voice and use their influence for great things. So when we think about news analysts, reporters, and journalists, we have to think about what they do. But when we think about producers and directors, we also have to think about what they do from that aspect as well. So I'm going to begin with the work that news anchors, reporters, and journalists do. So according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, there are a list of duties that news analysts, reporters, and journalists have. I think someone's knocking at the door. Let's see. You have news analysts, reporters, and journalists who typically do the following. Excuse me for one moment. But like I was saying, news analysts, reporters, and journalists do the following. So, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, they research topics that an editor or a news director has assigned to them, and they develop relationships with experts and contacts who provide tips and leads on their stories and articles. And they interview people who have information, analysis, or opinions about a story or article. And they analyze and interpret information to increase an audience's understanding of the news. And they write stories and articles for newspapers, magazines, and websites. And they also create scripts to be read on television or radio. And they review stories and articles for accuracy, style, and grammar. And they update stories and articles as new information becomes available. And they investigate news stories and articles for ideas and pitch their ideas to their editors. So this just, again, these are the responsibilities of a news journalist, a news analyst, and a reporter. But I'm going to shift the conversation in another direction as we talk about producers and directors. Now, again, Ms. Paula is going to be speaking with us about that shortly. But when we think about producers and directors and what they do, we have to think about how they make business and creative decisions about film, television, stage, and other productions. And how they interpret a writer's script to entertain, inform, or instruct an idea. So when we think about producers and directors, we can often think about the fact that they select scripts for topics for films, television, video, stage, or radio productions. We can think about the fact that they ensure that a project stays on schedule and within budget. We can think about the fact that they oversee a production process, and that could include the lighting, the sound, and all of the performances that take place. The post-production process, which includes the editing, the music selection, special effects, and a performance's overall tone. We can think about the auditions that take place and how they select cast members for the film, for the television production, or for the stage crew. And we can also think about how they approve the design and financial aspects of a production. But again, when we think about producers and directors, and when we think about writers and authors and people who use their experiences in order to tell their stories, authentic stories, and when we think about news reporters and journalists who are always looking for a story and who are always looking to find the biggest, well, the most, I wouldn't even say the biggest story, but the most controversial one. I think that we have to think about the ways we use our influence, because it's very easy for us to use our influence, for the good or for the bad. I'm pretty sure that we've all seen instances where people have used their influence in both regards. But since she's here in the waiting room, I'm going to add her to the stream and welcome her to the broadcast. Thank you, Miss Paula, for joining in this evening for the Beauty and Us Radio right here on the internet-based station, Awesome God Radio. We're Stellar Award nominated. I'm glad that you had a chance to speak to me this evening to talk about. I wanted to have a conversation about how to pursue a career in television and in radio. Now, you are pretty much the jack of all trades because I read your bio and you've accomplished a lot. And you have a lot of experience in the field of journalism and even as a TV personality and a radio show host. I mean, you've done it all. So I think that to start off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what made you decide to pursue a career in media and TV and in radio? Because I know that you weren't able to accomplish all of this stuff overnight, and it took a lot of time to really invest in these pursuits. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Nelson, thank you so much for allowing me to be a guest on your platform. As you mentioned, I'm a radio and television personality, so I know that you have the option of selecting whom you desire to be on your platform. So thank you so much for having me. I always deem it an honor when I'm invited to be a guest. So thank you so very much. So, a little bit about me. I am a woman who has transformed her life through a mindset change, unlocking some negative mindsets and creating a new narrative for myself, which has brought me to this place and time of being a radio and television personality, an author, a voice talent, a lifestyle print model, and commercial actor as well. Prior to that, I was a military spouse for over 23 years, and I would not trade that for the world. I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I was an educator for over 20 years. And throughout your life, you will find that there are things that occur. There are changes that occur in your life, be they positive or negative changes, and regardless of which way they pan out, there's still changes. And it's in those moments in which you have to make a decision as to whether you're going to continue to do things the way that you used to do them, or you're going to move forward in possibly new ventures, or perhaps pursuing some of those forgotten dreams that you've had in the past. And that's the direction that I chose to go in. I think I answered your question.
Yes, you did. You absolutely did. Yes, and I appreciate that. And one of the questions that I wanted to ask next was, what are some of the challenges of working in the industry that you work in? Because before you hopped on, to start, your interview, I was speaking to the audience about what happens in the world of being an author and being a producer, a director, and
Mhm.
also even in the field of journalism, how important it is to make your voice unique from all of the other voices that are present.
Mhm.
And I talk a little bit about how important it is to make sure that whatever it is that you're trying to convey to your audience, to your listeners, or to your viewers, when you're in TV and when you're in radio, you have to make sure that your objective stays at the forefront. Your purpose, your overall purpose for doing your broadcast or doing your show, um, or whatever type of production or whatever type of pursuit it is, you have to remember what your overall objective is. Because oftentimes people don't really understand how impactful and how powerful actually their influence is. Because a lot of people think that that they take their influence for granted, and they don't really understand how many people actually listen to um, with the topics that they may discuss with their guests or with some of their co-hosts, and
Mhm.
even with their producers and with the other writers and directors that they have as a part of their productions. I think that people really need to understand what goes into that, and a lot of people, um, and I feel like it's a gift because everybody does not have the ability to put on a successful show or um, run a successful radio station or even when we think about plays and different types of productions in that regard, everybody does not have that gift. But I feel like,
Mhm.
again, when you exercise that creative muscle, it stems from your experience. So what are some of the challenges that you've had, working within this industry? Because with being in the field of, television, radio, and even, you know, even in different forms of entertainment,
Mhm.
you have people who love you and people who don't. So, how do you navigate through all of that?
You basically said it. You have to be true to who you are. You must stand in your own truth. You must be intentional and strategic about whatever. If we're talking about those who are interested in pursuing a career in radio or in television, you must stand in your own truth and be authentic and true to who it is that you are, because you are absolutely right, Nelson. We don't realize how many people listen to us and the words that we speak. I always say that words have power, and the words we speak and how we navigate that and how we craft those words together, the words that we use, how we craft them together in sentences and paragraphs, and how we speak them over the air, they resonate upon the people who hear them within the sound of our voices, whether it's radio or television, within the sound of our voices. How we string those words together matter. So those of us in media have a responsibility, I feel, to be as truthful as we are able to be. Know what your platform is. And I think I'm probably answering another question in this question, but in the course of what you were sharing, it kind of, triggered my brain a bit. Being truthful to what it is that you're speaking to what it is that your platform. You mentioned a little earlier, those of us that are in this business, we try to relay to our listeners what it is that we are intending to relay to our listeners. And I would suggest that we have to be intentional about that. We have to find a way to do that. And then also a way in which we can see it demonstrated in our listeners, so that we know that they are understanding what it is that we are saying, as my students used to say, that they're picking up what we're putting down, and that they're really grasping what what we're saying, because those in media do have influence across the board. And I think you actually had asked me initially why I chose to pursue this career. I'm not quite sure I answered your question actually, but why I chose to pursue this. The opportunity presented itself. It was something that I had wanted to do years ago when I was a military spouse, but because of the fact that I was a military spouse and moving every 3 or so years, and was raising a family and being a military spouse, I did not have the opportunity. But it was always in the back of my head. And the opportunity presented itself, oh gosh, almost 8 years ago. And when that door opened, I was in a season where I was able to walk through that door and then pursue, that long ago dream, that forgotten dream. And I was able to pursue it at that time. And I always encourage people, I tell them that it's never too late to be what you might have been. I think it was a quote by George Eliot, that it's never too late to be what you might have been. So even in the season of my life that I was in, entering this winter season, we call it, as long as you're living and breathing and you have a dream, a passion, something that you desire to do, it's never too late. It's never too late. You can pursue that dream, or you can pursue that passion. And when you decide to pursue that, be intentional about it, as we just said before. Be intentional, be strategic, and make sure that your message and whatever it is that you're speaking is clear, because words do have power.
Yes, yes, and you did answer my question, and I appreciate how you articulated that. My next question was, what are some of the joys of doing the work that you do, and what are some of the projects that you've been working on? I read in your bio that you had your own show on the Survival Network from
Hmm.
2014 to 2020. So so you had your show for 6 years.
Yes.
So could you tell us a little bit about what that experience was like? I mean, I know that you talked about it a little bit in terms of being presented with that opportunity.
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about how your audience grew between that 6 year period?
Hmm.
Because I think that when we start out in television and radio or in any form of media, we're a little apprehensive about what about just jumping into this field and just finding our way,
Hmm.
trying to feel comfortable with the tone that we're setting. We're trying to feel comfortable with what our overall objective, what our overall purpose is for why we created that platform. So it can
Hmm.
be difficult to navigate through that when you begin the process. So could you tell us a little bit about what that experience was like growing your audience throughout that 6 year period and also branching out into a new show that you have now? Um,
Hmm.
so could you tell us a little bit about that and what would have been some of the joys, of doing that? Because
So,
it's 6 years, 6 years. It's a long time to run any type of show or any type of
mhm.
broadcast. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, and you're right. 6 years every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That was important to say. Eastern Standard Time was a long time, but I'll answer your question, and I will probably be answering another question in the process of answering your question. So keep me focused because I start going in different directions. Keep me focused, Nelson. But before I made the decision to even go into radio, I had multiple conversations with a gentleman who really was my mentor in this whole process. He's the one that gave me the opportunity to pursue radio. And that was Clark Garrison, the late Clark Garrison of Survival Radio Network. He was the brainchild behind Survival Radio Network. And I met him at a particular event. He asked me to come on air and speak about my role at that particular event. And in the process, he said to me, "Have you ever thought about having your own radio show?" And back when I was referring to the opportunity, that was the opportunity. And I was like, well, let me tell you, I always had this dream of being a radio host, but life happened and I wasn't able to pursue it. And at that moment, the door opened because he was the CEO of Survival Radio Network. So in the process of beginning that show, he and I had multiple conversations. And I appreciate him because he had the expectation of this. Radio for him was a passion, and it wasn't just a hobby. It was a serious pursuit. So, and I remember him telling me, if this is just a hobby, something that you want to do so that you can say you checked it off your bucket list, this is not the place for you. We are serious about doing media and doing it as accurately as we are able to do it and growing in that process. So the expectation is for you to be committed to a specific day, a specific time, for you to determine what your platform is, what your message is, what you will speak about on air, what you will not speak about on air. Everybody has a lane. And at that time, I had a particular lane. There were certain things that I chose not to speak on. And people, would ask, well, how come you don't speak on this? How come you don't speak on that? Because there are plenty of radio and television hosts out there that are speaking on those things. And that's not my lane in this particular season. And standing true to what that is, finding what your audience wants and finding what your audience desires and finding your audience. And through that, as you're building your audience, to answer your question, building your audience comes with consistency. It comes with, if you are on, I'll use mine for example. If I was on Wednesday night, every Wednesday, not if I was on every Wednesday night at 8:30, like the mailman, rain, shine, snow, sleet, power outages, I didn't feel well, whatever, Wednesday at 8:30, your audience expects to hear or see a show, whether it's a live show or whether it's a recorded show. It was very seldom that I missed a show, regardless of how I was feeling. There were times where I almost had laryngitis cup of hot tea, some lemon, some cough drops, I'm jumping on air. So the consistency, because when you build an audience, people you're gaining their trust. You're gaining the trust of the audience. So you've got to be consistent because they come to enjoy the conversations. They come to enjoy your show. They come to enjoy your guests. So they're expecting to see you. So to answer your question, how I grew my audience was through consistency, through going out. Clark and I also did a lot of live events. I'm here in the Atlanta, Georgia area in the US of A, and we went out and did a lot of live remotes at a lot of live events, being present on social media, having your email list, building your audience, being out in the community. That's how you build your audience, because if people don't know you're there, then they're not going to engage. They're not going to be listening to your show or watching your show. So you have to engage with the community around you, the community, your community that you live in, the community that you work in, your social media community, your online community. Engage in those communities. Be consistent, be authentic, and that's how you build your audience.
Yes, absolutely. And it kind of reminds me of some of the seminars that the CEO of our station had with us about what it's like to build your network and what it's like to grow in your media ministry and with the platform that you have, and how
Mhm.
important it is to, like you said, stay in your lane in
Yes.
terms of the types of discussions that you have on the show, either with your audience,
Mhm.
by yourself, or even with some of your guests. I and it even takes me back to the very beginning when I started, my broadcast when I started to operate my show with AGR back in September of 2020. Me trying to find a voice for young men who look like myself, because I noticed that that wasn't really acknowledged as often as I feel as though it should have been.
Mhm.
In the media and even on television. I didn't really see a lot of young men who looked like me, who had platforms and who had TV shows or radio shows to talk about some of the things that I like to discuss in my show,
Yes.
that pertain to education, um, community development, youth empowerment, mental health and wellness,
Mhm.
and just a wide variety of things. I've had an opportunity to meet with so many amazing people, and I've had so many great discussions with people. I've had some community organizers, attorneys, educators, entrepreneurs, other authors, and so many people who have a lot of gifts and a lot of insight to pour out. And I think it's important for us to realize that as well. With your new show, what is it like hosting your new show now versus the show that you had with Survival Radio? Because I think that is important for us as authors and
Mhm.
as radio personalities and people who are in any form of media, in terms of your shows, the content that you create, and what you bring to the table. I think that that's supposed to, in some way or another, mature as um, time continues. Because I think your experiences change. I think
Mhm.
that what you go through that changes, and that's inevitable. And I think that, again, your creativity and what people can relate to, it comes from your experience. That's what it stems from.
Mhm.
People are able to relate to some of your struggles or some of the things that you've experienced. So could you tell us the difference between some of the similarities and differences between your new show versus the show that you started with? Because now, since you are a veteran in this field, I'm sure you had a much different approach to the new show versus your very first show. So how did you approach the new show?
Yeah, I approached the news show with a lot less anxiety. Because to your point, doing radio for 6 years, the trials, the errors, cutting your baby teeth, as they say. When I first started radio, I had not had a radio. I mean, I was a military spouse. I was an educator. I wasn't sitting in front of a microphone with an audience listening, actually listening to what I had to say. Because initially there were some shows where I didn't have a guest, so it was just myself. So that whole scenario was, sort of nail biting. What am I going to discuss? Is it going to be engaging? Are people going to, a lot of the things that you said at the top of the show. So all of that is part of this journey. All of that is part of the learning curve. Learning media, researching guests, researching topics that people are engaged in. When I started the radio show, the concept that I wanted, when I really began to understand the concept of internet radio and realize people around the world, as long as they have your link, can tune in to your show. I travel to Europe at least twice a year because I have family in Europe, and I'm there each time for maybe 2, 3 months. And for me, that's kind of when the light bulb went off. Like, people can listen to your show. You send them a link, or they have a link, or they access it through social media anywhere from around the world. So, if I want to be relevant, if I want to grow an audience, if I want to deliver a message that speaks to everyone, then I need to have worldwide conversations. That was my theme for my radio show, was the Paula G show, worldwide conversations, the Paula G show. So with that particular show, I focused on content that was relative to everyone worldwide. And I know I may sound like I'm simplifying it, but at the end of the day, we all desire to live with joy. We all desire to be happy. We all desire to work at something that we enjoy and just get paid for it in the process. We all desire to have a good home. We all desire our children to be educated, in a manner in which they can become productive citizens. We all desire friends. We all desire love. Those are worldwide conversations. I'll tell you a story real quickly. I remember interviewing the president of the 100 Black Men of London, England, the 100 Black Men of London. And in the course of the conversation, he shared a bit about, living in London and lifestyle in London. That may not necessarily resonate with people around the world, because especially if they've not been to London, they may not be able to, grasp some of the terminology and so forth. And that's also where you come in as a radio or television host, is understanding those nuances and understanding those differences and being able to translate if you need to. But the one thing that he touched on that resonated, not just with those in London, but those here in the US and other parts of the world, was discrimination. I think in different parts of the world, there's some form of different discrimination. It may look different, but at the end of the day, the person is left feeling humiliated. The person is left feeling that what occurred was an injustice to them. And he shared some of his experiences as being being a Black man in London, and shared some of his experiences of what the youth are dealing with in London, same thing that our youth are dealing with here. So in the process of having those conversations, to your point earlier about growing your audience, having those worldwide conversations where people can tune in, and maybe it's someone that you're interviewing from India, but the topic they're discussing is education. And we're all interested in education. So as I transitioned from my radio show to my television show, I wanted to maintain that theme. But also, in addition to that, I wanted to share with the audience and encourage the audience that we are all juggling this journey called life while we're walking in the gifts and the talents that God has given us. Nelson, you're juggling your journey. You have this platform that you are presenting these shows on, that are educating and informing people, but you're also juggling the journey called life, whether you have a job, or you're taking care of family, or whatever it is that you're doing, or if it's a medical thing or financial thing, or the plumbing is leaking through the ceiling, or whatever it is, you're having to juggle that while still being on air set day and set time. So meshing those two together, worldwide conversations where we were all juggling this journey called life, whatever that looks like around the world, while walking in whatever our gifts or talents are. I'm a singer, I'm an author, I'm an actress, I'm an entrepreneur, and I do those things and I'm passionate about them. But I still got 6 kids and a husband that I have to take care of every day and take Johnny to his soccer practice or what have you. So, there are those things that everyone can relate to, and that's what brings us together.
Yes, absolutely, and I definitely appreciate you for mentioning that because again, people have to. I think that everybody deserves to have an outlet that they can, go to when they're feeling as though they're not being heard or recognized.
Yeah.
And I think that everyone has a desire to feel recognized or to feel acknowledged by the outlet that they turn to when they need that extra support or that extra encouragement when things aren't looking the best. Like you had stated before, everybody in television and media and in different forms of media or even in radio, we all have that audience that looks to us for support and encouragement. A lot of people want to hear something inspirational, something that's uplifting, and something that can support them in their struggles. And I think that again, being transparent about your journey is what's relatable to your audience. And like you said, people can relate to, and like even though I'm still very young, people can relate to. A lot of young adults can relate to the fact that okay, you're still trying to, set the foundation for yourself. You're still trying to plan your future, in the midst of attending college,
Mhm.
juggling relationships, juggling friendships, and um, trying to maintain healthy relationships with family. And just like you said, people can relate
It's
to
a
that journey.
Yeah,
People,
it's a juggle, and I would say I always tell my students when they would be sharing something with me, they would say, Miss Paula, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do that, and I'm trying to do this, and then I would tell them, I'm not gonna make you do it, Nelson. I would tell them, okay, I want you to repeat everything you just said, but take the word try out, because the very fact that you are here, you are doing it. You are doing it. Yes, you are a young person that is on this journey and you are setting an example, of other young people, your peers, those who are coming, behind you, even those who are a bit more seasoned. You're setting an example and you are charting your path, and with that path comes challenges. And yes, we do, we are trying these different things. We're trying to navigate this journey called life. But again, I always go back to that whole mindset of you are navigating it. You hit those bumps and obstacles, but the fact that you keep moving forward and you keep doing what you're doing and your consistency that you are doing it. So, I encourage you, and I'm impressed, that you have taken on this charge. You've noticed that there's a gap. They're not there's I don't see young men that look like me in front of the mic. So I'm going to make the decision to take the charge and be that person and be that example. And if you continue to do what you're doing, I promise you, my young brother, the doors will open for you, will continue to open for you. The opportunities will continue to present themselves. Again, as I used to tell my students, you never know who's watching. They may be silent, for a couple of years, but you never know who's watching. So please continue to do what you're doing and do not get discouraged.
yes, absolutely. My next question is,
Mhm.
who are some of your role models and mentors for the field of the field that you work in? Because I knew you mentioned a little bit about who your mentor was,
Mhm.
earlier on in the broadcast, and I think
Yes.
it's important for all of us to have mentors, someone who's a bit more seasoned in what we're trying to pursue,
Mhm.
so that they can teach us about the obstacles that we may face, and so that we could possibly avoid some of the shortfalls or shortcomings that they've experienced, on this journey. Because I've learned that through my journey, it's been
Mhm.
a very, very emotional journey. I can speak for myself. It's been a very emotional journey trying to balance everything, but like you said, that perseverance matters. People
Mhm.
are modeling after that. People
Mhm.
who are watching you are going to model after what you do and how you present yourself and how you carry on. So I always, keep that at the forefront of my mind once I finish with the tears and everything else, because
Right.
it's such an emotional journey
It is.
because you want to be that example, but
Mhm.
you have to remember that you're still human, and that
Mhm.
you still go through things, and you may not have the best day, you may not be feeling your best, but again, you have to remember what your intentions are, and you have to remember what your overall purpose and objective is. So, who are some of your mentors? I know you spoke of one earlier
Mhm.
in the broadcast, but who is your inspiration for radio? Who is your inspiration for why you do what you do?
Well, when you start calling names, you can get in trouble. But I would have to say locally, those who helped me to get to where I am, and I always start with Clark Garrison. He is the first one. He passed away in August of 2020. Yeah, I think it was 2020. But he was the first one that opened the door, had the faith in me to allow me to explore this platform. Jerry Voice Live, you mentioned him before, providing the platform to have my own television show. And, it's a beautiful story that he tells about, listening to, I always have this saying about listening to God's still small voice. And he having this conversation with God, and God speaking to him about having a television show and who's going to host the show and those types of things. A gentleman here in the Atlanta area by the name of Bill Gay, who is a veteran in radio and just is just a wealth of knowledge. Maria Howell, most may remember Maria from the movie The Color Purple. Toward the end of the movie, where she's yes, yes, that was Maria, a voiceover coach who has poured into me in regard to voiceover. My other voiceover coach, my first one, Eileen Kimball, very instrumental. Nick Starr, phenomenal actor and instructor here in this area. Freddie Hendricks, who has trained a lot of our young actors and actresses that are in the industry today, and even a lot of the younger radio and television hosts. I have learned, and when we use the term role model or mentor, I sort of like to use the term, when it comes to mentor, I would say Clark Garrison, but I would like to look at it more so as those individuals from whom I see something in them that inspires me, or something that shows me how to do this thing right. And I watch a lot of the younger radio and television hosts because technology changes. And I'm in my winter season of life, and I can text with the best of them, but when it comes to some of these different platforms and so forth, I'm like, okay, young people, you all gonna have to show me how to do that, you know. So it's those individuals who are on this journey. They're serious about this journey, they're passionate about the journey, and they see enough in you that they're willing to share and train and assist you on the journey. So those are just some of the individuals that I have looked to for assistance, that have poured into me as well, and that have helped me on my journey. So I'm very appreciative.
Yes, and that's phenomenal, and that's really really great because we all need people to pour into us, and we all need
Yes.
those mentors to be in our corner
Hmm.
when we don't know what to do, or if we're having a difficult time, or even if we're struggling with how figuring out how to move forward in
Hmm.
different aspects of our career. Because we all, just like when we all, as authors in the world, in the writers community, and in the world of being an author, just like
Hmm.
they call it writer's block, when you
Yes.
don't know what to write about, when you don't know how to move forward, that kind of can play a role into how you move forward in media as well. As a
Yes.
radio show host and as a talk show host, for TV, you will have moments where you will not know how to move forward, or you
Hmm.
may feel frustrated because you may not think of anything to discuss, anything new to discuss, for your audience. And it's always important to, again, have someone there who can help you through those obstacles and those
Mhm.
bumps in the road that you will experience.
Well,
And I,
it's interesting that you mentioned that because that is one of the things that Clark taught me. It's like, you might, like you said, writer's block. The same thing happens in front of the microphone. The same thing happens in front of the camera. It's like, okay, what am I going to talk about today? What am I going to say today? And one of the some advice that he gave me was to always have three topics at the back of your head. Always have three topics that you can draw from in the event that you get to that point. Let's say you have a guest that doesn't show. You still got that airtime. You still got to fill that airtime. So, having that, in reserve. You had asked earlier about some of the challenges, and I'm sure you can relate to this as well. In radio and television, some of the challenges is when you have a weekly show, you are tasked to book that show each week and to prepare for that show each week. And so juggling having guests, juggling trying to schedule difficult guests who take like 3 months to schedule, and being patient and consistent, those are some of the challenges, the logistical part of it. And then again, like I was saying before, just kind of juggling everything else in your life with producing a quality show each and every week. But when you're passionate about it and you're serious about it and you consistent. And again, I commend you because true confessions, it took us a minute to with my schedule, it took us a minute to come together for me to be able to be your guest, but you were consistent, you were professional, you were patient. That's one of the challenges of booking the shows, but you exhibited that professionalism that is needed for longevity as a radio or television host. So I commend you on that, and I appreciate you being so patient with me.
yes, absolutely. And like you said, I can definitely relate to that because I had to going into, the pandemic because I started my broadcast, virtually through the pandemic. So I
Yeah.
had to juggle through all of the technology and I had to figure out how to adapt to the new normal, quote unquote.
Yes. Yeah.
So I
While
had
juggling being in the unknown territory, because we know who knew pandemic,
right.
so juggling all of that and how that kind of settles on all of us mentally, in addition to everything that you mentioned. Yeah. So.
Yes, because I had to wear many hats. I had to be the
Hmm.
producer, I had to be the director, I had to, be the host. So, it was challenging in the very beginning, but after
Yeah.
becoming acclimated to the way things are,
Hmm.
I demonstrate much more flexibility in terms of how I move and how I schedule things and how I make things happen. I demonstrate much more flexibility now than I did in the very beginning, trying to
Yes.
figure things out. And I'm much more confident now than I was in the very beginning. And I can
Yeah.
definitely see my growth, from that point. And I know there is much more in store, even post pandemic. So, what
Hmm.
advice, and just to sum up everything,
Hmm.
what advice would you give to a young person who is trying to pursue a career as a journalist,
Hmm.
or even as an author or in some form of media? Because again, we have many networks um, who have a target audience for a specific social group and a specific class of people, because we all have a need to feel recognized and acknowledged. We all want that outlet to go to when when we're having a bad day, or if we need a laugh, or if we want
Hmm.
to hear something very authentic and powerful. So what advice would you give to a young person who's interested in pursuing a career in media? I spoke a little bit about the jobs that people in media do. So
Hmm.
whether it's a producer, whether it's a director, whether it's an author, how what would you say to them?
Well, first, I'm speaking it into existence. I would tell them to take Nelson Brown's How to Start Your Own Show 101, because you certainly have been on that journey yourself. So have a conversation with Nelson Brown. But also, and I'm serious about that, but also do, do your research. Do your research. Determine why you want to do this. Because remember what I said earlier about and I'm speaking to the audience now. Remember what I said earlier about consistency and gaining that audience loyalty. So you have to ask yourself, is this something that I am passionate about and I want to do for long-term longevity, or is this just something I want to check off the bucket list? I'm going to go with the audience that is looking to get into this for the long term. Do your research. Nelson mentioned it's not just a plethora of things. It's not just getting in front of the camera and talking to the audience. You're a producer, you're a director, you're a script writer, you're an engineer, you're PR person, you're a media person, you're a social media promoting. You are booking your guest and juggling that because you book guests and then they cancel and then you have to get somebody else and then you trying to get their bios and their headshots. Am I speaking truth, Nelson? And you're attempting to get all of those things. So understand what it is. Have a conversation with the Paula G's. Have the conversation with the Nelson Browns to understand what it takes to do it. What we do in front of the camera, what we do in front of the microphone is 10% of it. The other 90% is what he mentioned about producing and scheduling. Meanwhile, juggling everything else that you have to do in your life. So really understanding, doing your research, understanding what it takes. And then when you decide that you want to do a radio show or television show, decide on a day and a time that you can commit to no matter what. When I decided Wednesdays at 8:30, I knew that was the day and that was the time that I could commit to. The other days of the week were kind of up in the air. I didn't want to take that chance, so I committed to the Wednesdays. So those are some of the things that I would suggest. Also, for those who believe in a power higher than themselves, I'd be very prayerful. My journey really is an answer to prayer. Lord, if this is the direction that you have gifted me to go in, open the doors of opportunity, give me the wisdom and discernment, the courage to walk through those doors, and lead and guide me as I walk through those doors. And then at that point, it becomes a leap of faith. There's this quote that I read, and it was anonymous. It says, "Leap and the net will appear." And that's that. I was at the threshold of faith, of leaping, and the net appeared in the different individuals that I mentioned who have helped me along the way. So that would be my advice.
Yes, well, it's great that you had an opportunity to pour in so much, wisdom to the listeners this evening, and I'm glad that I had a chance to, have you on for this evening to talk about the work that you've done in media, and also some of the projects that you're currently working on, and things that you've accomplished in order to get to where you are. And I was able, just by reading, your bio and learning more about you, I can see that you've invested a lot into this and
Yes.
into this industry and into what you do, and the foundation that you stand on, and that's something that should be acknowledged, to the fullest. And I definitely salute you, and I appreciate you for that. So what are some of the ways that people can reach out to you? Some of the listeners can reach out to you if they have any more questions about your work or about how to pursue this.
My email is paula@paulagvoice.com. It's paula@paulagvoice.com. You can put in the subject line Nelson Brown, and that way I will know that it's coming from you, Nelson. My website is paulagvoice.com. Across social media, it is Paula G Voice. Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, it's Paula G Voice across social media. And I just want to thank you again for having me as a guest on your show. And I just encourage you to continue to do what it is that you're doing, because you've got something here. You've got something here. So continue your journey to what it is that you desire to do, and you will achieve your goals. So
Yes, thank you very much, Miss Paula. I'm gonna let you go and close out the show, but I just wanted to again thank you for your time, and thank you for pouring in so much wisdom to to the listeners. And I definitely I do honor all of it.
and thank you, and continue, as I mentioned, continue your journey. You're doing a
Yes,
great job.
yes. Thank you very much.
Take care.
You too. Okay, so that wraps up another edition of the Beauty and Us Radio right here on Awesome God Radio. I'm glad you guys had an opportunity to meet Miss Paula at, you know, and I'm glad that you had an opportunity to learn more about what she does in the field of media. She has been wearing many hats for a long time in this industry, and she definitely has a lot of knowledge and expertise that she poured into you guys this evening. So, again, I appreciate you guys for taking time out of your day and your evening to listen to us have a conversation about how to pursue a career in media and how to stand on the foundation that you stand on as a TV personality, as a radio show host, and as you continue to pursue these types of dreams. So, next week, we are going to have our post Mother's Day show. So, that's a show that I have on a yearly basis. This will be my second show. So last year's show was phenomenal, but this year's show is going to be great as well. So my mom's going to be coming back with a couple of other ladies that I've already sat down and had conversations with in the past on previous shows. So I'll have a few other ladies who are going to join my mom in the post Mother's Day show broadcast for the Beauty in Us radio right here on Awesome God Radio. So make an appointment to meet me back here on May 10th, 2022, Tuesday, May 10th, 2022, from 6 to 7 p.m. as we sit down with the ladies and celebrate, Mother's Day, and as we have a conversation about that like we did last year. Last year's show was great. I enjoyed speaking to those ladies, and this year's show will be great as well. So prepare for that. I know that Mother's Day weekend is coming up quickly on Sunday, May 8th. So I hope you all have an opportunity to really enjoy Mother's Day, and to people who may have lost their moms or any maternal figure in their lives. My thoughts and prayers are with you, and I definitely hope that you can find someone in your community, find someone in your peer group that you can celebrate Mother's Day with, and we're going to have a conversation about that next week. It's going to be great. What it means to be a maternal figure, what it means to be a mom. I mean, it's going to be great. So I appreciate you all for tuning into another show. And again, this is the month of May. It's springtime. I hope you guys have a chance to enjoy the warm weather. But in the meantime, you can follow us on social media, Awesome God Radio. You can follow Awesome God Radio on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, LinkedIn, you name it, we're on it. And you can also follow my work at Nelson E. Brown on Twitter and on Instagram, and at Nelson Brown on LinkedIn, and on Facebook, Twitch, and all of the other outlets as well. So this is Nelson E. Brown, host of the Beauty and Us Radio right here on Awesome God Radio, and I will see you all next week. So again, make an appointment to meet me back here Tuesday, May 10th, 2022, from 6 to 7 p.m. as we sit down with the ladies for our post Mother's Day special right here with AGR. Take care. I love you all. Stay safe. And I hope you all have a blessed week.